Thank you so much, Chair. President Ramaphosa, just the first thing that I need to say to you, please don't call me Judge JOHN. You know why. You know better than I. Don't call me Judge JOHN, please. Right. President, there are many programs and state departments in your office. I have quite a lot here on my cell phone: South African National AIDS Council, South African Investment Conference, Presidential Climate Commission, Human Resource Development Council, Infrastructure South Africa, National Strategic Plan on Gender-Based Violence and Femicide, Presidential Youth Employment Intervention and Operation Vulindlela. In addition to that, obviously, we know there are other state departments which are now under the presidency. Excuse me, there are other state departments falling under the presidency. The first problem is that I have not had sight of the annual performance reports. We asked for them even this morning. So it's very difficult to approve of something in the dark, right? And secondly, the problem, thank you. Secondly, the most critical aspect of the Government of National Unity Cabinet is that you, Mr. President, you can now act unilaterally with state-owned companies, bypassing parliamentary oversight, right? To understand this, it is essential to know that Parliament has three types of committees: the standing committees, ad hoc committees, and portfolio committees. The role that is played by portfolio committees is very critical. These committees are responsible for overseeing government ministries, but there has never been a portfolio committee that has been established for the presidency. That is a serious lacuna. We don't have a portfolio committee that has been established for the presidency as yet. With the dissolution of the Department of Public Enterprises, state-owned companies will now fall under the presidency, which means they will no longer be accountable to Parliament. The President only answers to Parliament during quarterly question and answer sessions, which are often marred by bias and lack of transparency. The DA has previously called for a portfolio committee on the presidency, citing Phala as an example of its necessity. However, now that the Democratic Alliance holds a cabinet positions, will they reiterate this call? The Zondo Commission report also recommended establishing a portfolio committee on the presidency, but will Zondo emphasize this recommendation again? It's highly unlikely that he will. State-owned companies contribute significantly to the economy. They are responsible for 27% of the GDP, surpassing the Johannesburg Stock Exchange, which only has a contribution of 23%. The question is, can we trust President Ramaphosa to manage these companies without parliamentary oversight? That is the question. Accountability is very important, Mr. President. The President is not required to account to Parliament in the same way that that ministers do account. He also cannot be summoned by the Portfolio Committee in the same way as ministries can. Right. That's my understanding of how Parliament functions. Mr. President, it's very difficult for us as an opposition to effectively say we go along with the budget. No figures have been given at all as to how the budget has been comprised. We don't know. I'm standing here being called upon to come and endorse a budget in the dark. It's very, very difficult to do that.
Order, Honorable HLOPHE. There is a point of order. If you can take your seat. Honorable Member.
It's Honorable Msezane, Speaker.
Yes.
Speaker, we were very respectful to the President and to the Chief Whip of the ANC
Which rule
when
are
they
you
spoke.
speaking on?
No, Speaker. It's parliamentary disturbance. The Speaker is being disturbed. And we can equally be very... Speak, if you like the House to not degenerate, kindly assist in us in allowing our Speaker to speak without interruptions.
Honorable Member, thank you very much, even though you did not indicate under which rule you are raising your point of order, but there is no overwhelming noise that is drowning the Speaker. When that happens, I will intervene as I've always done. Honorable Member, let's allow Dr. MJ HLOPHE to proceed. I'm also making the same mistake like the President. Honorable HLOPHE.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I was still saying, President Ramaphosa, it's very difficult to engage constructively and meaningfully. We have not had sight of the budget. You also didn't take us into confidence as to how much has been budgeted for in your office. It creates difficulties for us. As far as the MK party is concerned, our view is very clear. You alluded to 3 challenges that we have in this country, and they are, in your views, poverty, inequality, and unemployment. We appreciate that there are budget constraints. We're not suggesting as MK party that the office of the president should not be capacitated, but the real issue is by how much is that office supposed to be capacitated. And we're here as parliamentarians to ensure that there is proper accountability, because we're representing the voters here. We want to make sure that there is an independent portfolio committee in the presidency to ensure that everything is accounted for properly and that everything is according to book. It is the view of the MK party that money should not be concentrated in the presidency. Well, it doesn't matter how much has been allocated, but money should not be concentrated in the presidency. Rather, there are certain departments where money should be diverted to. For example, the Department of Basic Education. There is no self-respecting country in the world which does not take education seriously. It was only yesterday when I learned, I think it was on News 24, that the Department of Basic Education returned something in the region of 580 million to Treasury. Sorry, I apologize, it was higher education. I do not know the circumstances relating to how that occurred, but on the face of it, someone is not doing their job. It really doesn't matter whether it was higher education or basic education. Education is important. Fine, doesn't matter for me.
Order, honorable members, let's allow the Speaker to make his point.
The other department which in our view as the MK ought to be given more money is obviously the Department of Justice and Constitutional Development, for reasons that we outlined fully in the debate, one of which is overcrowding. And overcrowding will not come to an end as long as we do not plow enough resources into that department. And that department has a huge deficit or cut of 18%, which is quite huge. We have stated our position as the MK party that a lot of money must be invested in agriculture, far more than we have budgeted. And our approach to agriculture is that we should also develop infrastructure in terms of, we are talking about rural development. We must develop infrastructure in rural areas. And our view is that when that infrastructure is developed in rural areas, we must utilize local talent. and we seldom do that. We tend to import these big contractors, and they come sometimes, there is tension between the workers emanating from the big contractors and local people. We end up with a situation whereby local people or residents do not identify with the infrastructure. One of the compelling ways of making people identify with the infrastructure is to get them involved right from inception. That will create jobs for them as we build roads and as we build bridges, and we must ensure that some of those jobs are permanent and ensure that the local residents look after the infrastructure. We also believe, as the MK Party, that a lot of money must be plowed into the army. We have stated our position that we believe there should be compulsory military training. We should reintroduce that, and it makes our boys and perhaps our girls who want to go to the army, it makes them more responsible citizens of this country. Going to the army is not just about shooting, but there is more to it. There is self-discipline, and there is a lot of skill that people acquire in the army. So we believe there should be more money that should be plowed into the army, and that will create, thank you, and that will absorb so many of our youngsters who are idling in the townships and they have absolutely nowhere to go. At least we would know that as soon as they turn 18, they will be absorbed for about 2 years in the army. They will have something to do than just idling in the streets and becoming victims to drugs and other social ills. The other problem where money should be going, in Cape Town it was reported last week, for example, there were 9 murders just in Cape Town alone. Clearly the money that we invest in the police is not enough. We need to invest far more money in the police. The question arises, where is money going to come from? We have certain ideas as to how money can be generated. The first obvious one, which you are not going to like, Mr. President, is the cabinet. The size of the cabinet with respect is too big. And this was recognized by the opposition, the then official opposition, the Democratic Alliance, when they were the official opposition. They recognized that, but when the time came for the government of national unity, they are now singing a totally different tune. In addition to reducing the size of the cabinet, which is the obvious thing to do, Mr. President, you should also seriously engage your colleagues in the cabinet to scale down on the packs that they have. You can only scale down on your pack. If, for example, you are entitled to a helicopter, you don't have to order a helicopter, right? You can order something. It's something that colleagues can be engaged on. Yes, we need to save money. It may sound ridiculous, but the bottom line is that there is so much money that we will be able to save. For example, instead of flying business class, you can fly economy class and embark on austerity measures. We can, on a voluntary basis, all of us embark on austerity measures with a view to saving more money, and those funds can be redirected and be plowed into education, defense, police, and so on. It is a fact. When the time comes, Mr. President, to borrow money, please borrow from BRICS. We have a very important role to play in BRICS. We have to use BRICS. BRICS has a very important role to play, and it is here to stay. We are partners. We have to use BRICS. I am aware that we have borrowed money from BRICS, if my memory serves me well, in the past. But we should continue to use BRICS as a viable alternative, as opposed to IMF and other institutions, right? We should use BRICS. The other thing is we have to increase tax, particularly tax that is paid by companies, especially foreign companies. Many a times we are told that if we increase tax on foreign companies, they will run away, they will invest elsewhere in the world. We've heard that before. Mr. President, we've heard that before. Those companies that we were told are going to run away if tax is increased marginally or by a significant proportion, those very companies are still here. They are still mining in this country, paying our workers salaries, which are clearly sometimes not up to scratch. So the argument that if we increase tax in respect of companies, especially foreign investors, that they will run away, it is not borne out by what we see out there. Doesn't make sense. Oil, Mr. President, continues to be a serious problem. I'm talking about oil. It does continue because it impacts on, obviously, fuel and other related products. A question that I would like to ask, why can't we import oil from Iran? Iran has the cheapest oil, I'm told. I'm not an oil expert. Iran has the cheapest oil in the world, I'm told. Is there any reason?
Order, honorable members. I'm sure you will share part of the last of your speech with the President. Your time, unfortunately, has come to an end.
Thank you. I leave it as a question. Is there any reason why we cannot import oil from Iran, Mr. President?
Thank you. Honorable Deputy Minister of Electricity and Energy.